Hello, everyone. Thanks for stopping by our poster. My name is Jade Wexler, and I'm an associate professor at the University of Maryland and also the principal investigator of this OSEP-funded coaching model demonstration project. I want to acknowledge my other two colleagues on this poster, Dr. Kristabel Stark and Dr. Alexandra Sheldon, and my co-PI at the University of Texas at Austin, Dr. Colleen Reedable. So this model demonstration project is, again, focused on coaching, and specifically we are focused on building school-wide literacy models at the secondary level, specifically in middle schools. And so data really suggests that we have a challenge on our hands, that only 34% of students are proficient readers by 8th grade. And although we have developed quite a few evidence-based literacy practices and demonstrated their efficacy in schools, many of our observation studies show that content area teachers, tier 1 teachers, are still missing opportunities to really integrate and use these practices to support content area learning and reading comprehension development of our middle school students. So school-wide literacy models hold potential for really increasing students' access to evidence-based literacy instruction across the content areas. And this is really important for our students with disabilities who spend a majority of their day in that content area setting. So to establish these models, secondary content area teachers really need professional learning opportunities, which can help them integrate the evidence-based literacy practices into their typical instruction. And research also shows that these one-shot PDs are just not enough to really support implementation of these practices for teachers, and effective professional learning opportunities needs to be of sustained duration and also include a level of individualized coaching. So if you look in the middle here, there's a figure that talks about our coaching model. It's called AIM Coaching Adaptive Intervention Model. And essentially what happens in this coaching model is that teachers are provided evidence-based, professional development on an evidence-based practice or practices prior to the beginning of stage 1 of our model. And then in stage 1, they are given standardized protocol support, which essentially means the same type and amount, dosage of support that for all of them. So a series of plan sessions, in-class support sessions, reflect sessions, some check-ins. The coach at this time also collects one formal fidelity check towards the end of those 6 weeks. And also every week is collecting information on teachers' levels of collaborative effort. And essentially that's their level of willingness to engage in adoption of the practices and engaging, how much they engage with the coach when the coach is trying to support implementation of those practices. During the next 2 weeks, they have a progress monitoring phase where the coach considers the fidelity data, which is the skill data, and the will data, which is that collaborative effort data that they've collected during that previous stage, during stage 1. And then what happens is teachers who are considered to have high skill, they continue during stage 2, and we consider them also to have high will. Okay, so we kind of back off those teachers a little bit and also leverage them as teacher leaders in interventions for our lower skill and lower will teachers and our high will teachers. The low skill teachers, we try to determine, is it that they have low skill but high will, so that they're trying to make progress, or is it that they have low skill and low will, and essentially why? And we give the coach a set of kind of guidelines to figure this out in a very diagnostic way, and then figure out how to individualize their support of these teachers during stage 2. And then that process, the progress monitoring phase and the stage 2 phase, repeats over time throughout the rest of the year. And so you can see there on the right of stage 2 that we expect that the coach will allocate their time in this way, where we think that they're going to get the biggest bang for their buck with those teachers who are really low skill, high will. They'll be able to move them essentially towards that high skill category, where they spend the other 20% of their time with the high skill teachers, again, developing them into instructional leaders and leveraging their skill to help other lower skilled teachers. And then, of course, supporting the low skill, low will teachers in other ways. So we know these coaches, if they exist at all, which is also a challenge in middle school, they don't have a lot of time. They're often pulled in so many different directions. So going back on the left here, you can see kind of our solution to building these school-wide literacy models, where we essentially pair these PACT practices, a set of evidence-based literacy practices called PACT, with the AIM coaching model to support teachers' implementation of those PACT practices. And the PACT practices are essentially providing background knowledge on a text that the teachers already have to teach, or a text that aligns with the topic that they're teaching, providing essential words or explicit vocabulary instruction on a word that is in the text that also relates to other words, and then moving them through a critical reading routine to help and support students' comprehension of that text overall. And so that we provide support and professional development on these PACT practices. These PACT practices have a lot of evidence of effectiveness, and then they're provided support with that coaching model. So now down at the very bottom, what you can see is just kind of an overview of our project timeline. So this year we were able to gather baseline data in our schools. Right now we're in 2 middle schools in the DC area. We did observations and a lot of meetings with the teachers and the coaches primarily. We trained the coaches in the AIM coaching model as well as the PACT practices. And then we completed training of all the teachers on the PACT practices towards the end of the year. Next year, we will support the coaches as they use this AIM coaching model, and we will provide intensive support of them. The year after that, we will provide what we call responsive support. So we're kind of backing off from them. And then finally, we'll be investigating the sustainability of the model, which is, of course, our main goal. So finally, over to the right, you see there that we have a little spotlight on one of our schools. One of our schools is a Title I urban public school. There were approximately 870 students in grades 6 through 8. During the previous year, we observed approximately 50 content area lessons. We found that really students didn't have their eyes on text very much in general, and there was a lack of evidence-based literacy instruction that wasn't occurring. So indeed, we do have a lot of work to do. And so we ultimately trained over 50 teachers and the coaches in these PACT practices, as well as in the coaching model. And so finally, at the very bottom, you can see that there's a link to our AIM coaching website, and we hope that you'll check back for more resources there. We'll have the professional development up there eventually, and all sorts of other great resources. So thank you so much for stopping by our poster.